Welcome back to Success Beyond Borders. You know the drill. You said it's something interesting. We dive deep. So today we're tackling global streaming. And to help us out, we've got an expert in the field.
Glad to be here. Always love digging into this stuff.
Great. Now, you sent over this article from Goodlon, The Streaming Paradox, and it opens with this story about a streaming giant that just totally flopped. They had the budget, the marketing, even servers in all the right places.
And they still failed. It's like they missed something really basic, They knew the budget, but they forgot about the audience.
It makes you think, right, we're all connected now. You'd think a hit show is a hit show anywhere. But that's not always the case.
Nope. And that's the paradox they're highlighting. The tech connects us, but culture. Culture is what makes or breaks you.
So we're talking more than just like subtitles or dubbing.
Way more. It's about deep localization. Recognizing that what works in one place might not in another, like humor. What's funny here could be a disaster somewhere else.
Gotcha. So tailoring the content itself. Any examples of that in the article?
Oh, yeah. They talk about subtitles and dubbing. Like, U.S. audiences might prefer subtitles for indie films, but other places like parts of Asia really want that dubbed content.
Makes sense. I've noticed that myself with some foreign films. It changes the whole experience.
Exactly. And there are some other big hurdles the article lists.
Yeah.
Licensing agreements being one of the worst.
Oh, bad.
Imagine you've got this global hit, but then you find out someone else owns the rights for a key market. Just like that. You've lost a huge opportunity.
So a show can be huge, but still not streamable everywhere.
Yep, that's the reality. And
Yeah.
it's true for both the subscription model, like, what is it, SVOD,
Yeah.
and the ad-supported one, AVOD.
Hold on just a second. For listeners who might not know, can you quickly define those?
Sure, SVOD, subscription video on demand, think Netflix, Disney+. You pay a fee to watch AVOD, advertising-based video on demand, free to watch, but you get ads, like old school TV.
Perfect. Thanks for clearing that up. So back to licensing. What else should streaming services know?
Well, there are also region-specific deals. So a show might be globally available, but certain episodes are blocked in some countries because of old deals with local broadcasters.
It's like a giant puzzle.
It is. And then you add in regulatory compliance. What's okay in one country might be banned in another.
Right. Totally different rules everywhere.
Exactly. Every country has its own data privacy laws, censorship rules. So something that's totally fine here could get your platform blocked somewhere else.
Any examples come to mind?
Sure. Let's say you have a show with strong political satire. In some countries, no problem. But in places with tighter censorship, that could be seen as offensive or even illegal.
It's a minefield.
It can be.
Yeah.
And navigating it requires a lot of legal expertise. You need to be able to adapt fast.
Okay, so we've got licensing and regulations. What other challenges does the article mention?
Well, even with servers all over the world, infrastructure can be a problem.
Yeah.
Limited bandwidth, bad internet connections, even shaky payment systems. These are big issues, especially in developing countries.
So even with great tech, things outside your control can mess you up.
Exactly. You can't just focus on your own tech. You have to understand the whole ecosystem.
It's not just the content or the servers, it's the whole picture.
Right. And speaking of tech, the article talks about algorithms and how they can struggle globally.
You'd think an algorithm would work the same everywhere, but that's not the case.
Not really. They're often trained on data from just one place, like the US. So what they recommend might not be relevant elsewhere.
So a show that's recommended here might be a dud in Europe or Asia.
Exactly. It shows why the one-size-fits-all approach just doesn't work.
That's fascinating. I hadn't thought about algorithms that way. And it connects to another challenge the article brings up, this paradox of choice.
Right. We've got so much content now. But is it actually easier to find something to watch? Apparently, 42% of subscribers cycle between subscribing and canceling because they're just overwhelmed.
Wow, that's a lot. I know the
Okay.
feeling. Sometimes I spend more time browsing than watching.
Exactly. More choice isn't always better. The article even says only 28% of Americans and 21% of Europeans find it easy to discover new stuff on their streaming platforms.
So even with algorithms, discoverability is a problem.
It is. It's not just about adding more content. It's about making that content findable, making it relevant.
Okay, so we've got licensing regulations, infrastructure algorithms. It's a lot to overcome. So how do streaming services actually succeed globally? That's where Ngulinlim's approach comes in, right?
Exactly. The article spends a lot of time on their methodology, their framework for tackling these challenges.
Okay, so what's the core of their approach?
It's about moving away from the generic one-size-fits-all strategy. They focus on local dynamics, understanding each market's culture preferences, and even limitations.
And how does that look in practice? What are the key parts of their strategy?
They have two main pillars, strategic alliances and dynamic monetization.
Interesting. Let's start with strategic alliances. What's that about?
Global expansion isn't just about content, it's about partnerships. They say streaming services need to team up with local players. Telecoms, payment processors, even regional content funds.
Makes sense. You're getting local expertise
Yeah,
and building trust with the audience right away.
exactly. You get immediate credibility and a much better understanding of how the market works.
Do you have a specific example of that?
Sure, imagine a streaming service partners with a telecom in a developing country. They could offer a bundle deal where the streaming service comes with a certain mobile data plan, makes it easier to access, and creates a new revenue stream for both companies.
It's like building a bridge between the global platform and the local audience.
Perfect analogy. And these alliances aren't just about getting around regulations or bad internet. They're about really being present in that market.
There's a lot more strategy involved than you might think.
There is, and Angoulême doesn't stop there. They also talk about dynamic monetization.
Okay, now you've got to explain that one. What does dynamic monetization involve?
It comes down to the fact that not all markets are the same. Some people are willing to pay more for content, some are more open to ads.
So you can't have one price for everyone.
Right. Angouleme's approach uses data to constantly adjust the balance between the ad-supported model AVOD and the subscription model SVOD, finding the sweet spot for each market.
So you're always analyzing data and tweaking your strategy.
Exactly. Flexibility and adaptability are key, not sticking to one model. And the article even hints at some really innovative approaches like Web3 monetization.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
We'll have to keep an eye on that. But for now, let's stick with Angoulême. We've talked about the challenges, their methodology, but what does this all mean for the people actually running these streaming services?
Great question. And the article does go on to explain how Angouleme's framework can give streaming executives a real advantage.
Okay, I'm all ears. How does it actually help them?
First, it's about managing revenue growth. By understanding local markets and tailoring content, streaming platforms can keep their subscribers longer, increasing their lifetime value.
So it's not just about getting new subscribers, it's about keeping the ones you have.
Exactly. And Angouleme's approach lets executives see exactly where they're losing subscribers and make changes fast. That can be huge for their bottom line.
It takes out the guesswork.
It does. And it gives them a real competitive advantage. While other companies are stuck with the old ways, the ones using deep localization and adaptive monetization will stand out.
Because they're creating a better, more personalized experience for the viewer.
Exactly. It's about connecting with your audience on a deeper level.
This has been really eye-opening. It's clear that global streaming is about way more than just content and budget.
It is. It requires a strategic approach that's sensitive to culture, adaptable, and really understands each market.
It's a lot to take in, but I think we've got a better understanding now of what it takes to win globally.
I agree. It's a fascinating field, and I think we've just scratched the surface.
Well, listeners, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave you with a question. Think about your favorite streaming service. Does it feel like it's made for you? Or does it just feel like another global platform trying to fit in? We'll dive deeper into this and more in part 2 after a short break.
It really is such a key question because it gets to the heart of the problem. How do you be global but still connect locally?
Yeah, it's tempting to just focus on expansion, but you have to understand what makes each market unique.
The article calls it this global ambition versus local connection.
Yeah.
You don't abandon your goals, but you have to be flexible.
This reminds me of that deep dive we did on cultural intelligence in business. Same idea.
Yeah.
You can't just translate your product. You have to understand the culture.
Totally applies to streaming, too. A hit show here could flop there if it doesn't resonate.
And the article had some great examples. Even small cultural things can impact preferences, like subtitles versus dubbing. Some people love one, some love the other.
Totally changes the viewing experience. Those little details matter.
And it's not just language, right? It's the
Yeah.
humor, the storytelling, even social norms. All that shapes a market's taste.
Absolutely. What's funny here might not be funny there. Streaming services have to be aware of that.
You know, we talked about partnerships before, and I think it's worth bringing up again. It seems so central to Angouleme's whole approach.
It is. Partnering with local companies like telecoms, payment processors, even studios, it can make a huge difference.
It's about tapping into local knowledge and building trust with the audience right from the start.
Exactly. Shows you're serious about understanding their market, not just dumping your content on them.
And those partnerships can be so helpful with regulations. which can be a nightmare internationally.
Oh, yeah. Every country has its own rules about data privacy content censorship. It's a minefield. Local partners can help you navigate that whole mess. Make sure you're following the rules.
Like having a local guide in a new city. They know the best way to get around.
Exactly. And that brings us back to data-driven decision-making, which Angoulême really emphasizes.
Right. They talked about using real-time data to figure out the best balance between ads and subscriptions. That was really interesting. Can you talk more about that?
Sure, it's about recognizing that different markets have different economic realities,
Yeah.
different levels of comfort with ads.
You can't just have one pricing strategy.
Nope. Angoulême's model is all about analyzing the data and constantly adjusting to find the best mix for each market.
So always tweaking, always adapting.
Exactly. And don't forget about Web3 monetization. The article mentions that too. That's a whole other rabbit hole.
It is Web3 could completely change how we think about funding and consuming content.
It's still early days, but the possibilities are huge. We're just starting to see what Web3 can do.
Okay, we've talked about the challenges, the opportunities, the strategies. But what does it all mean for the average viewer? The person who just wants to watch their shows?
Good question. I think the more streaming services adopt this localized approach, the better it is for viewers. More diverse content, higher quality.
It would be amazing to have content that's not just entertaining, but also culturally relevant, personally engaging, something you really connect with.
Exactly. It's not just passive viewing, it's an experience.
The article used the term cultural fluency. What does that mean for streaming services?
It means going deeper than language, understanding how people communicate, what their cultural references are. It's about building trust.
And being respectful of different cultures, even when they're different from your own.
Exactly. It's about humility and a willingness to learn.
This deep dive has been so insightful. Global streaming is complex. It's changing all the time.
Yeah.
But it's also full of potential.
It is. It's a chance to connect with people all over the world, share stories that go beyond borders.
As we move into this new era of entertainment, I think the companies that will win are the ones who understand this, embrace localization and data. They'll be the ones building those global relationships. So as you explore the world of streaming, remember what we've talked about. Challenge your assumptions, embrace diversity, and never underestimate human connection. The future entertainment is global, but it starts with understanding and respect.
I couldn't have said it better myself. It's been great talking about this with you.
And we're back for the final part of our deep dive. I think it's worth circling back to the main point of that Angoulême article. Global streaming needs new mindset.
Yeah, it's not about copying and pasting what worked in one place. You need to really understand each market, adapt your approach.
The article had this great analogy about a tailored suit. You can't just have one size fits all.
Right. A good suit fits the person perfectly, and a good streaming strategy fits the market.
And that's where understanding the nuances comes in. The culture, the rules, the tech, even the economics of each region.
Exactly. What works here might not work there. So you have to be willing to try things out, see what sticks.
The article also talked a lot about data-driven decision-making, which we've touched on throughout this deep dive. But can you break that down a bit more? What does it actually mean for these companies?
It's about using data to really get to know your audience, see what they're watching, what they like, what they don't. It's about being proactive, not just reacting to problems.
So you're looking for patterns, making adjustments on the fly.
Exactly. Using data to guide every decision, from what content you buy to how you market it, and being willing to change course if the data tells you to.
You know, something that really stood out to me was how much the article emphasized the human element. It would be easy to get lost in the tech and the data, but this is about connecting with people.
It is. You have to understand their stories, their values, what matters to them, and then create content that speaks to that authentically and engagingly.
The article used the term cultural fluency. What does that look like for a streaming service?
It goes beyond language. It's about understanding how people communicate, the unspoken rules, the cultural references. It's about building real trust with your audience.
And being respectful of different cultures, even when they're different from your own.
Exactly. It's about coming in with humility and a willingness to learn.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive. Global streaming is complex and always changing, but it's also incredibly exciting.
It is. It's a chance to connect with people all over the world, share stories that go beyond borders.
And as we move into this new era of entertainment, I think the companies that will thrive are the ones who get this, who embrace localization, who use data to connect with people. They'll be the ones building those lasting relationships with viewers around the world. So to our listeners, as you explore the world of streaming, remember what we've talked about today. Challenge your assumptions. Be open to new ideas and never underestimate the power of human connection. The future of entertainment is global, but is built on understanding and respect. And that's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us. And be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the world of media and tech.